Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It's another epi of League Unlock here. Mark here with you beauties for some heavy hitters. Couple of bangers. Well, at least one banger on the rift. We're talking, of course, round one matchup, T1 versus Hanwha. First time we got to see Zeus and Doran against their former squads, and in the Fearless Draft era, first Game 5 in the LCK, I will say this series delivered. I think that's safe to say.
I'm going to slap the label on for this matchup, this showdown. I'm calling it for all time. This is the most important, most consequential match of League of Legends ever played in the month of February. There it is. That's the one that I'm going with right now. The consequences of this one, win or lose, will be felt by not only the LCK, but the international scene as we move through to the First Strike event. Really think that this one, again, is going to set the tone for the future as far as where we come to understand what type of matchups, what type of stakes are involved when you have an event like the First Strike one, First Stake one that we got at the beginning of the year.
And you could tell, especially as we jump right to Game 5, what the implications were with no losers bracket, season-ending elimination match, because it was a slow-paced game for the first 20 minutes. Nobody was really willing to make a move. Then we finally get the Draven cash-in for Smash. He gets like a 1.5k individual gold lead by himself on that. And then T1's in the driver's seat and looks like they'll be the ones to control this game.
They are the ones in the driver's seat and the ones that control the game, but there is a timer on that dashboard that they need to reach the finish line before, well, you got to have to deal with the Lamborghini of Hanwha Life, Zeus roaring on by you on that Olaf and just taking out and cleaning out your team. And T1, they absolutely felt the pressure of that timer. They're seeing it. They're knowing what they got to do. They've got the gold advantage over, 5-7K. They build it up towards. Let's go for the base. We got to make sure that we're taking this one. It's an overstay, an overextension from the team, and it's punished by the squad of Hanwha Life. They go to Baron, and from that point on, they've got the momentum. They've got the wheels to get their comp into motion, and it is done and dusted for T1.
Yeah, and of course, the unlikely hero is a 0-6 Amumu jungle, killing some of these minions so that T1 can't get to that second Nexus turret. And obviously, fully on display, the Fearless Draft in this fifth game. You got a Zoe mid for Faker, a Kali for Doran. We got a Soraka sighting, of course, the Amumu, and then the Olaf topside for Zeus. But yeah, because they overextend, Hanwha basically gets this free Baron, which just kind of resets the entire game and slows it all out. And doesn't matter how fed the Draven is. There's no way Draven's killing an Olaf at 40 minutes.
There's that timer. There's going to be one of those things where you just cannot get the opportunity, and outside of a mistake on the side of Hanwha Life, from finding a chance to burn down that Olaf before he just runs havoc through that backline for T1, through that important damage dealer in Smash. Wasn't able to be managed from the side of T1 as you laid out. I think the Mumu is kind of a sneaky pick in the sense that I don't know if anyone else, any other champion, is really going to have an opportunity to clear the wave the way that Amumu just innately could, as long as he got there. And knowing that Peanut had his flash and everything else, it was a 0.01% chance that T1 could stop him before he could get there, gets that clear. It's an incredible story, because the way that this Game 5 goes, and knowing the drama that was on the line, and to have T1 have the advantage and power that they did in this game, but knowing that it really isn't just about, T1 mistake, which certainly there are, and there are avenues that you can nitpick a little bit more and find it, but it really was just about a time thing, and it was trying to push and trying to make that calculation of, well, if we keep waiting, that Zeus is, that power level's rising up, and that's risking that chance. And unfortunately, you made it happen a little bit sooner by making that mistake.
And, you look at the rest of the series as a whole, there were a lot of close back and forth games, and Fearless came fully into effect. You can go all the way back to Game 3, really, when you had, obviously, our first Mel sighting in the LCK, and we quickly got to learn how Mel interacts with Silas, thanks to Faker.
And not only did we learn it, Faker, I think himself individually learned that lesson on the LCK stage from what we got to see. This was the full Fearless Draft experience in the LCK. We've had a a small sampling, let's call it, of a couple of these interesting things come through in the drafts and what we've seen. But for sure, this series and the way that it played out, the strategy involved in the Fearless draft is what I really acknowledge and liked about this one, because you had times going game one, okay, what's the big threat? Zeus on Jace? Okay, have that game one, no problem. But you're not going to have it any of these other games type of situation. Game two comes around, have Cassante. Okay, you want to have that Rumbo pick, Dorn? Go ahead, take that one. It's not going to be there in these next games. And I think that was one of the very interesting angles of saying, running that risk of take this power pick, but that's your chance. That's your only opportunity. You're getting this power pick, and it's not going to be there if we start pushing this series to these more important game 4, game 5 within it, and we get the real push of Fearless draft coming through.
And this really just makes me sad for these other splits that aren't going to have Fearless, because we're all going to get so used to it and addicted to it that it's going to feel so stale to have same picks in back-to-back games or multiple times throughout a series. The other big play highlight to talk about, even though T1 ends up winning game 4, the 5-man Wombo combo that almost gets Hanwha back into the game with Peanuts, Diana, and Zeka's Yasuo was an absolute beautiful thing to behold.
It was pretty crazy. It's one of those moments where, again, you can kind of throw the Faker's Shockwave finds them all type of call onto it, because, yeah, how many times do you get the full 5-man ultimate, and especially the extra sweetness of knowing it's the 5-man ult, followed up again by another 5-man ult, because it is just simply the Wombo combo of the Diana and Yasuo combination. Love to see that one, even if it's coming against my boys in T1.
And obviously, this was going to be a painful result for either squad being eliminated. Now it's going to be till, what, April? Till we see T1. So obviously, the Smash Guma saga is going to continue. And now people will look back on the split and go, oh man, T1 choked in that first round. But listen, by the end of this playoff push, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Hanwha and T1 might actually be the two best teams in the whole league.
It's just unfortunate that there is no loser bracket type of situation. I understand that part of the reason why this was so exciting, such a thing, is that there was that drama, that penalty, that cost of losing this series, of being eliminated, not seeing you again until April type of situation. But I still think the overall quality of these teams, what we saw, how they earned their way to this spot, not only being the best teams within their groups, but then winning their play-in matchup, having it set up where, okay, your reward is this do or die matchup against another top tier team. And whether maybe the equation is both of them say, yep, we'd like to eliminate one of these other top contenders at this type of point, or it is, agreeing with, I think, the general community of saying we wanted to see that rebound, that bounce back for either one of these teams that was going to lose and try to run it back through that lower bracket side. Not going to happen. Smashing Guma, going to be the thing talked about, of course, with T1 over the course of this timeline, and whether we get any bit more of information, or whether we see that there's a change and maybe this was only for a Fearless draft type of situation, whatever. That will play out for T1. But the bigger effect for me, no T1 at the First Strike event for Riot Games. That is going to be a big loss, regardless if you're a T1 fan or not. They move that needle when it comes to viewership and attention when you get these international events. Them not being there, regardless of how good Gen G is, D plus Kia, Hanwha Life, heck, throw in the dark horse of Nongshim at that point. I don't care who it's going to be.
It's a real dark horse. Can't even see it.
One of these squads, they're not bringing the same level of hype and excitement that T1 does. And not only is that a bad thing for the First Strike, it's extra bad because guess where it is? It's in Korea.
Yeah, and 1.9 million viewers, the most we've got in 2025 so far for this series. Opening round of the playoffs, and you're reaching 1.9 million. If you're following basketball at all, the Luka Doncic trade, his first game with the Lakers, had 2.1 million viewers. So it's comparable to this T1 Hanwha Life series.
And that is like one of the most jaw-breaking, groundbreaking type of moves that's ever happened in the NBA, in the association's history. So to compare that early on, good signs for League of Legends, and especially, again, shows that level of interest, excitement, hype that is generated in a matchup for T1 and Hanwha Life. And I think part of that, again, plays into that drama. So there is that conflicting sides of this story where it is unfortunate, it is bittersweet to say goodbye to T1 at this point, and tough luck, you got to work your way back type of situation. But it absolutely played into all the dramas and theatrics that we got to see yesterday.
And obviously, how good does it feel as Zeus to beat T1, to be the player of the series? All credit to him, but there shouldn't be too much Doran slander after this series. I know the Olaf Akali matchup obviously went heavily Hanwha Life's way, but you look at Doran's body of work throughout the whole series, you're feeling okay. You give the edge to Zeus, of course, but Doran, pretty good.
Doran more than held his own, showed the signs again, of course, of being that player that is leading in that head-to-head matchup historically against Zeus and how that's gone through. Zeus does get the extra edge in this one with the Hanwha Life squad and the way they play. But yeah, I'm not seeing or really paying any attention to any of the slander for Doran in this series. I think that he was relatively solid. I think you can have some problems more so with the Pike pick for Kyria in game one into the Alistar and Xin Zhao on the other side. I don't see that one having a lot of effect. And then you can go even further. How about we throw the LeBlanc support in there?
That wasn't it.
And this is one of those ones where, you know, you have to have that conversation of wanting Kyria to be able to explore, to experiment, and try these wacky things down in the bottom lane. But there's certain ones where, you know, there's times, there's places, there's checks on the other side that say, okay, maybe we go with something different. And that's where I think that's where my perspective would come into this series.
That was giving me flashbacks to Earth mode, seeing Kyria pull out a support LeBlanc running bot lane. That one felt like he was cooking a little too spicy. But yeah, you let Kyria go off with whatever picks he wants in support with the history that he has, of course. It's just the Ninjas in Pajamas era over in the LPL. Another day on the Rift, another 3-0 for Doublelift and the boys. We get to see a little Pantheon mid out of him. We've seen him support, we've seen him jungle, less so in the mid lane, but really this series to me was about the level that Leave is at right now. This guy is looking like a premier bot laner in the LPL. Games 2 and 3, my man went 17-0-13.
I'm going to need a couple more games, and I say a couple more games. They've only played literally a couple games is the way things go for Ninjas in Pajamas in the LPL schedule, but very much so interested in what is going on with this team and what I've been seeing so far. Again, the verification of Dwayne B and his level of skill where he's been able to step back into that spotlight has been very good for this team. You can check in with, you know, the other players and the other aspects of this team and find it doing well. But the real one, as you said, is going down and checking in with Leave in the bottom lane, because if he is a high caliber damage threat like this for the team that can be relied upon in these type of moments, you've got a winning combination on this NIP team, one that can really push itself into that elite category of the OPL. We're just going to need more games, because that is the only thing holding back this NIP team from being verified into that top level of League of Legends teams right now.
And somehow in this era, Doumble's cooking up three Rise games so far with a 17 KDA. NIP's the only team that have yet to give up a Baron in now 10 games. So we're getting somewhat of a sample size. Obviously now at 3-0, they're going to finish at the top Group D as that first seed going forward. But I mean, before the Doumbl announcement that he was unretiring, I feel like we've already talked about this team more than we thought we were going to in the preseason.
Yeah, no question we've talked about them more than the expectations. That wasn't meant to say that there weren't any real type of expectations, maybe a dark horse hope here or
like
there.
Like a middle tier playoff team.
But you needed something else to bolster this squad, to anchor what was going to be increased weight, increased pressure when you look at this next type of category, next tiers of the LPL as you move further up. Doinby is the guy to shoulder that load, to take it on for him and this team, and especially in a situation as we have seen with this fearless draft where he says, whatever, man, I don't even need these restrictions on me. I'll already play something different. Let me keep moving around my champion pool, stay interested in this game. That's what's going on. NIP keep winning, and they keep looking good in the LPL.
Yeah, Doumble's just pulled the rest of the region down in the gutter with him saying, nah, you don't have that Azir fallback every game that you can play. No, I'm going Pantheon. Even the Aurora, he didn't look that comfortable on. He had some whiffed ultis and different skill shots, but it's fine because he looks so damn clean on the Rise of all champions, and we know his dark technology is fully cooking. But like everyone else in the LPL, gotta see this team against other actual top team squads in the LPL.
Need that showdown against a BLG, against the top eSports, against a JDG. These are the type of matchups that we are just absolutely starving for in the LPL that we need to be getting. Again, you look at the LCK, we've already had a couple of smaller, low-key, marquee matchups, and then the big hitter that we just had, T1 and Hanwha Life. We're looking at you, LPL. Come on. I know you got it. You can give us some heat. Bring us a good matchup.
We got BLG, IG, TES wrapping up the final 3 days of, I guess, regular season action. I don't even know what we're calling it. But then we can finally get into these playoffs with the top 2 teams from every group and really start sorting out who is in that hierarchy of top teams over in the LPL. A little bit of, I'm not going to call it drama, but excitement, things we've been maybe waiting for, anticipating, and that is the North American version of the Las Ratones. Hearing that Doublelift and the boys are cooking something up. We're talking Doublelift, Spica, Pobelter, Biofrost, and Mr. TF Blade in the top lane, putting together a team to hopefully qualify and get into the NACL for next split. This is, I mean, obviously been linked to and as a result of Las Ratones, and in like Doublelift was describing, not even 72 hours this idea came together and they've already got scrims booked.
Oh man, I love this. This is fantastic for the LTA and North American scene, and just for League of Legends enjoyers in general. I think getting this type of reaction, this is one of the fallouts that we talked about. Seeing Las Ratones, seeing the excitement, seeing the success that they were able to have, what type of path this would pave for other, former professionals, people that are just outside the scene, all sorts of things to come together to try and create something. And here we go. Now we've got it in North America, LTA, and I don't think there's anybody you could pick better than someone like Doublelift to take this on, take this role for this journey.
And then the TF Blade angle is the interesting one on the squad, and I know Doublelift kind of talked about it's their version of the Baus. He's kind of a guy you're like, can he make it in a professional setting? He's there for the content, and content is first and foremost for this team, much like a lot of these streamer-based squads lately. But TF Blade, obviously prone for getting a bit tilted and upset, so very curious to see how he'll be with 4 former pros around him.
And I think that's part of the equation that people are kind of forgetting about with Las Ratones, given that things have worked out so well and wonderful with Baus in the top side, has been that, yes, having that risk, having that potential, dynamite stick waiting in the team is part of that interest, part of that excitement that people want to be invested in with the drama around one of these content created type of teams. I think the other aspect that is going in favor of this one with Doublelift is, of course, his girlfriend Lena, and being involved with everything behind the scenes, the organization, the management side of this thing, because as again, we all know League of Legends players, management, actual contracts, all these type of business dealing stuff isn't always our strength, isn't always the best suit for us. Having Lena be involved in that one, I think, is going to lead to some good organizational strength right out of the gates for this content creation group.
And obviously the big part of Las Ratones is Cadril as coach. That's the biggest draw for viewership. So you're saying Doublelift's playing, he's not coaching. What's the coaching situation going to be? Well, they don't fully know. Doublelift hinted at for these upcoming scrims, they might have rotating coaches, name dropped Meteos and LS. The idea of a rotating coach per scrim is absolutely insane if that ends up being the case. But hey, this is for content, not less so for anything serious.
I think if it is for content, having that chaotic sense and urgency that would come through having the changing of those scrim coaches would be something to go with in that angle. I think one of the interesting things talked about as well is Tyler One. There is no bigger North American figure within the League of Legends scene than him, so having his involvement would be a mega boon type of situation. But we all know a little bit of a difficult time for Mr. T as he is stepping away from World of Warcraft.
Yeah, after his War Chief's gone, so he's back to the league scene.
Rest in peace. Maybe he will be returning in this type of situation for something like this. That would be the big getter, big swing. What about, I hesitate to throw it in there, what about someone like Bjergsen coming in the coaching role? We've had him coaching before in the LCS. I know he's a little bit, people thought he wanted to distance himself from the League of Legends crew, but we just had him at the LCS closing at the last summer finals, so maybe we can rope him on in again for a little bit of time with Double.
Yeah, and I mean, if not, Bjergsen, if he has fully separated himself, just get the two-headed snake of Meteos and Sneaky together. Just meme in the whole way through.
There's no way you can get better content in North America than throwing those two jokesters together. We've seen it so many years on the meme teams of Cloud9. Would be a very fun trip. Either way, whatever name you really want to throw out there, I think there is no shortage of entertaining, fun angles to go through with this team. To see it be started up and get this momentum behind it, have ideas of having show matches against Las Ratones. These are the things that we talked about to generate this type of movement, to capitalize on this interest and viewership that we wanted to see within the LTA and LEC. We're starting to see action and signs of that.
Yeah, and listen, the NACL has less interest than even most of the ERLs over in Europe. So if a team like this does qualify and is playing in that league, you can expect about a 1,000% viewership boost.
And especially considering we just had a recent change come through for the scheduling of those NACL games through the middays of the week, and the scheduling would be a big time boost if you could throw in this content created team of Doublelift.
And, he kind of talked about, he doesn't want to get back into that professional grind if they were to qualify for the LTA. And I'm going, okay, pump the brake, qualifying for the LTA, guys. I think you're disrespecting the players in the NACL a little bit.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves in that type of situation. Again, as much as we love to talk about throwing Las Ratones into the LEC, getting a guest spot type of situation set up, these are all very hypothetical and very much things that would need to be massaged, worked around to find the right type of situation for.
And these guys are still going to be streaming. He said they're going to scrim maybe once or twice a week, so it's much less serious.
Very much so. So let's, be cautious with this type of one. But I think the early signs, again, are very exciting, very hopeful for a lot of people, a lot of fans that are on the outside looking in and saying, we want one of these type of experiences, and we want it with some of the players that we know are more comfortable with closer to home. The LTA, Doublelift, Spica, Pobelter, Biofrost, these type of names, absolutely very familiar to the long-standing North American League of Legends fans.
Doublelift unretiring for a second, maybe even third time now at this point. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, beauties. Thanks for hanging out, and we will catch you on that flippity flip.